welcome back to my channel. Today I'm making a video about ConformityGate. So before we get started, I just want to be very clear that all of the information in this video comes from r/ConformityGate on Reddit and the hashtag ConformityGate tag on Tumblr and Twitter. These are not my original theories, although I did notice a few of these details myself. I just wanted to make a video as a compilation and breakdown of the theories that fans online have already discovered and put together. So with that said, today's video is split into 3 sections. So first I want to talk about what ConformityGate is. Then I want to move into 15 pieces of evidence and how compelling each one is in my opinion. 3, my personal thoughts on the theory. And that's going to be this video, and I can obviously make more as more evidence comes out, but today is the 5th of January, so to be honest, I don't know that anything else will come out about it, but I do think it's very interesting. So, let's get started. Section 1. What is ConformityGate? So, ConformityGate is a theory that suggests that Mike, and possibly the audience, was cursed by Vecna during Volume 2 and the finale of Season 5. So according to the subreddit and this theory, the final epilogue we see may actually be a Vecna vision, similar to the ones that we've already seen characters such as Nancy and Will experience throughout the series itself. If that were true, it would mean one of 2 things. Either the ending we're seeing isn't real and there's going to be a secret episode, or we've been mind-flayed and Vecna is still alive. So basically, this theory argues that the show may have secretly ended on a bad ending that looks peaceful on the surface but is really wrong underneath. So let's take a look at the evidence. I'll be going through 15 different pieces of evidence that I've compiled, and I'm also going to tell you how compelling I think each one is based on how convincing I find it, generally speaking. So number 1 was that there was no season number outro. So if you look at all of the other seasons of Stranger Things, with the exception of season 1, there is a season number outro where it says like Stranger Things, and then it'll have like the 4 or the 2 behind it. We didn't get that in season 5. It's not definitive proof or anything, but it is strange that it's different, and it makes it feel kind of incomplete after you've come to expect it from previous endings in the series. So I gave that one a 6 out of 10 just because I don't think it means necessarily that there's going to be another episode, but I do think that it was a choice to do it differently. The second piece of evidence I've seen a lot is that the Mind Flayer and Mike's season 1 poster. So Vecna's hideout that we learned is like actually the spider version of the Mind Flayer looks eerily similar to the season 1 poster in Mike's room that we see when Mike is showing Eleven around his room. And on top of that, the Mind Flayer looks different. In my opinion, it looks closer to how Mike might imagine it in like a physical body rather than how Will has actually seen it, because when we look at the Mind Flayer that Will sees versus the one that we get in the end, they do feel very different. They don't feel like the same creature. I also found it interesting that we know that the Mind Flayer likes it cold, but it lives in a desert, and that could be because the poster in Mike's room is set in a desert setting. So that connection to Mike's perspective is what makes this unsettling, because if he was flayed and under Vecna's control, that would be something that would stand out, and I think it does. So I gave that a 7 out of 10 because I do feel like that is pretty compelling. The third one is kind of silly, and I gave it a 3 out of 10 on how compelling it is, but if you look up fake ending on the Netflix search bar, Stranger Things pops up. So, again, honestly, this one's kind of funny. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but some fans noticed it, so it is part of this conversation. I just think it's a little funny that this is something that even happened, but it is the only show that pops up when you look up fake ending. I did look into this one, and I thought that was very odd. One thing that I noticed that I thought was very odd is our 4th piece of evidence, which is that the audience at graduation mirrors Henry Creel. So every time we see Henry, he has his hands kind of like clasped. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the time he has like the Henry stance, and Billy stands like that when he's possessed. But if you look during the graduation scene, every single person in the audience is staring forward with their hands clasped in their lap in the same way that Henry is often framed. So it's subtle, but once you see it, it's hard to unsee, and it's very eerie to watch. Even Will and Dustin and Lucas, they're all standing there with their hands clasped. So I just thought that was strange and uncomfortable after I noticed it. So I give this a 6 out of 10 because this could just be explained away with, oh, they did a practice and they told them to sit like that. But I just feel like it's very unsettling, so I gave it a 6. Because I feel like it's more compelling than not compelling. Number 5, everyone becomes what they hate in the end. So this one is one of the most compelling ideas in my opinion. Max becomes angry and starts throwing things, and it almost reminded me of Billy in the way that she was behaving during the D&D game. She starts like throwing stuff, and it was very much giving Billy, who we know she did not want to become. Mike becomes really passive and stays in Hawkins where he is, and it's very much giving Ted. Like, he just gives Ted Wheeler in the ending. And Nancy has a haircut similar to Karen, and we do know that Nancy's whole arc and her whole storyline is that she doesn't want to be like Karen, and then we find out that she drops out of college, and a lot of this, it just doesn't read like the characters, in my opinion. We also know that Will smokes, which we know that Joyce hates because of Lonnie, so I thought that was an interesting parallel to Lonnie. And in my opinion, this paints the finale as secretly tragic, because everyone is slowly turning into the very people that they feared becoming. So, for number 6, I said that Mike calls Joyce Joyce. So, in the finale and, like, the second volume of season 5, Mike refers to Joyce as her name, when in every other season in volume 1 of season 5, he calls her Mrs. Byers. It's a very small detail, but it is out of character for him. I gave it a 5 out of 10 because this could be bad writing, or it could insinuate that they've become closer over the course of the season. But I do think that it's a very odd choice to have Mike call her Joyce instead of Mrs. Byers. Number 7, some people have pointed out a lot of Truman Show parallels with Mike in the finale, and there are a lot of strong thematic parallels between Mike and the Truman Show, because he is a character unknowingly trapped in a false reality, believing that everything is fine while he's secretly being manipulated, which fits a little bit too well with the ConformityGate theory. So I just thought that was interesting and I wanted to point it out. I said that this was a 6 out of 10. If I had noticed the parallels, I might have given it a higher rating, but given that I didn't notice them, I just said it was a 6 out of 10 if it were true. So 8, a lot of people have claimed that the Duffer said the final episode script was printed in red. However, when we see episode 8 script, it's white. This doesn't necessarily mean anything concrete, but it is interesting that in their documentary, if you look at pictures or even pictures of them doing a table read for episode 8, it's a white script when they said the finale was printed on red. So I just thought that was strange. I gave that a 5 out of 10 because, again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I don't think it's very inconsequential like the Netflix search bar. Number 9, color shifts and Vecna's presence. So this is another one of the points that I think is the strongest. So fans have noticed color changing often during Vecna's influence, as we know with Holly saying, oh, the merry-go-round is the wrong color. It's supposed to be yellow in the middle. But in Shock Jock, the dial color is different than we saw earlier in the season. So if color equates control, then something is very wrong here, because if we know that Vecna can change the way things look, and we have a completely different color than it was earlier in the season, and this isn't something that, like, oh, it was unintentional, like, they would have had to change the set they used, so I just think that's very interesting. So I give that a 9 out of 10, just because it's a very different piece of evidence that I think supports the theory well. So number 10 is a little bit less compelling in my opinion, because it's a little bit of a reach. So, the Duffer Brothers, when Volume 2 was releasing, said it's going to be a dark Christmas, and a lot of people are arguing that this is a secret January 7th episode, because that's when Orthodox Christmas is celebrated. Now, this one is fun, but it's mostly speculation, and that interview was referring to Volume 2 releasing on Christmas, and even though, in my opinion, it wasn't a very dark volume, I don't know that they would release a secret episode on January 7th. So I'm giving that one a 3 out of 10. So, another piece of evidence that's very compelling in my opinion is the new flashlight that was released. So there's this officially licensed Stranger Things flashlight that does regular light and black light. But if you shine the black light inside of the box, a secret message that reads "Vecna lives" pops up. That's a lot to put onto the merchandise, and especially like as a secret message in the box if it means nothing. So that's why I think that this is really compelling, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. So, number 12, there are songs missing from the Squawk vinyl record. Now, some fans have claimed this. I haven't personally verified this one, so take it with a grain of salt. But if it is true, I would say it's extremely compelling, so I said 8 out of 10. I don't own the vinyl record, and I have no way to check what songs. I guess I could look up a picture, but I didn't do that, so this is something I've seen a lot of people talking about, and if that is true, and the songs are going to pop up in a secret episode, that would be really cool. The False Hydra. So this is a really cool piece. So if you look at Will's painting that he gives to Mike in Season 4, there's a false Hydra, which is a Dungeons & Dragons monster that erases memories and creates a false reality, one that can only be cracked by tiny inconsistencies and differences. And given how heavily the show relies on D&D lore, I think that this is an interesting parallel that would be hard to ignore, especially since we see the painting in the finale. So I give this a 9 out of 10, because if they were going to do a different episode, I think that this would be a really cool and well thought out hint for the reality being fake. And then I have the girl who approaches Dustin. So the girl who invites Dustin to the party in the finale is the same girl that he tried to hit on in the snowball. At this point, Vecna would not know about Susie, so this probably is the only girl that Vecna knew that Dustin liked. Therefore, if he is actually flaying someone, so for example Mike, he might bring this up, and so this could be a coincidence, or it could be manipulation by Vecna. And the final thing that I noticed was that there were a lot of dice that say 7, and we know that 7 is very important to the show. In the beginning we see that he rolls a 7, and the Demogorgon gets him, so this could be just like a fun nod to that, but I do think it's interesting that they chose to include the dice with the 7, and a lot of people are saying that this means that on January 7th, we're going to get a secret episode. Not sure how true that is, but I do think that it was interesting, so I wanted to share that one. I would give that one a 2 out of 10 on how compelling it is, in my opinion. So, for my thoughts, overall, I really like this theory. Do I think there will be a secret finale coming out? Probably not, and I say that mostly because I don't want to get my hopes up, and I feel like it would be a lot of work to advertise a finale, put it in the theater, and then come out with a secret one. And they could still do it. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but I am saying that I don't want to get my hopes up for a fake episode that's not coming out. So the finale wasn't my favorite, and I felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions, but therefore, choosing to believe in ConformityGate actually makes the ending more meaningful, in my opinion, because even if we never get another episode, this theory can reframe the finale as something more tragic and more in line of the dark horror theme that is Stranger Things, about trauma and conformity and control. As Eddie said, conformity, it's killing the kids! So I think it would be interesting for them to all, like, this be the bad ending instead of a good one. And honestly, I kind of love it that way. So I hope you like it. And if you have any thoughts on this theory or my video, please let me know. As a reminder, I got this information from the ConformityGate theory subreddit and the Stranger Things hashtag ConformityGate, Tumblr, and Twitter. So please let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you for watching.